Welcome, traveller, to a place where the veil between the living and the dead is thin, a realm where the forgotten whispers of ancient legends still echo, and the shadows of long-lost spirits linger. This is not just a story, it is an invitation to step into the heart of darkness itself, to explore the tales that have haunted humanity for centuries. Here, within the ancient vaults of the mysterious archives, lies a collection of stories so dark, so ancient, that they have been passed down through generations as warnings, as lessons, and as eerie reflections of the human soul. These are the tales of dark folklore, stories of restless spirits, cursed objects, and entities that exist between worlds, forever haunting the living. As you step forward into this realm, know that these are not just stories. They are the remnants of something far older, far darker. Welcome to the mysterious archives, where the shadows of the past hold secrets that still haunt the present. Each tale you hear, each legend you encounter, is a link to a world you may never fully understand. So take a deep breath, traveller. Prepare yourself, for you are about to journey through the dark folklore, where the line between reality and myth blurs, and where the unknown calls out to those brave enough to listen. Our first tale begins now. In the depths of every culture, there exists a darkness so profound that it lives in the very heart of human fears. These stories, ancient and modern, pass through generations like whispers in the night. They are the tales of those who never found peace, of spirits that roam, of the things that lurk just beyond the edge of our understanding. What is it about the unknown that terrifies us? Why do we create stories of spirits, monsters, and vengeful entities? These legends, rooted in dark folklore, shape how we view life, death, and what lies beyond. And yet, these tales are not just born from superstition. They come from a very real human fear. The fear of the unseen. The fear of the things we cannot control. Folklore, in its purest sense, is the collective wisdom of a people, passed down through generations. It is the reflection of cultural values, beliefs, and fears. And within this vast tapestry, there exists a category that stands apart, the darker side of folklore. These are the stories that explore the forbidden, the terrifying, and the supernatural. They speak of spirits unable to rest, entities born from human sorrow and vengeance, and places where the veil between the living and the dead is thinnest. Across the world, from the misty hills of Ireland to the dense jungles of Southeast Asia, dark folklore weaves a common thread. Spirits, ghosts, and creatures that exist not just to haunt, but to punish, to warn, and sometimes to avenge. They are not simply figments of imagination. They are part of the fabric of human culture, speaking to a primal need to understand the forces that govern life and death. In cultures across the globe, the fear of restless souls and dark entities manifests in countless forms. From the vengeful ghosts of Asia to the sorrowful wails of the Banshee in Europe, these stories share common themes. But what connects them? Why does every culture, from the ancient civilizations of Egypt to the remote tribes of the Amazon, harbour these dark tales? At their core, these stories serve as a warning, a way for ancient cultures to grapple with the unknown and the uncontrollable. In the chilling tales of spirits that cannot rest, we see an expression of the human desire to understand life's most profound mystery: death. What happens when a soul is lost, forgotten, or unable to find peace? How does it affect the living, and what can we learn from the things that cannot move on? Fear is an emotion that transcends time and space. It is an instinctual response to danger, yet it also fuels the imagination. The darker side of folklore feeds off this primal fear, twisting it into stories that not only scare us, but challenge our understanding of reality. What happens when we face our deepest fears? Do we truly understand the consequences of death? Or is it simply easier to create stories to explain the things we don't understand? Every culture tells stories of the dead who refuse to leave, of spirits that return to complete unfinished business, and of entities that seek vengeance on the living. These dark folklore figures tap into our fears about the unknown, about what happens when we die and what we leave behind. And these stories have existed for as long as humans have feared death, creating a powerful connection between our deepest emotions and the stories we pass on. Dark folklore, with its tales of lost souls, spirits, and monsters, speaks to something universal in us all. It transcends borders, languages, and cultures. Whether it's the wandering spirit of the Pontianak in Malaysia, the Jiangshi in China, or the Wendigo in North America, these stories exist to remind us of the mysteries of death, the unknown forces that govern the world, and the consequences of disrupting the natural order. But what is it about these stories that continues to capture our imagination? What do these spirits, these entities, and these places tell us about ourselves? In the next part, we will explore the concept of the restless dead, spirits that are unable to move on, trapped in limbo, and forever haunting the world of the living. There are tales that speak of souls who cannot find rest. They wander the earth, trapped between the living and the dead, unable to pass over to the other side. These are the spirits lost in limbo, the forgotten ones who remain tethered to the mortal world. They are not at peace, and their presence lingers in the spaces where the living dare not tread. In every culture there are stories of these restless souls condemned to roam for eternity, their sorrow and pain echoing through the lives of the living. The belief in souls trapped between realms is a widespread one, cutting across cultures and time periods. In the ancient world, many believed that the dead had to undergo a journey before they could reach the afterlife. In ancient Egypt, the dead were weighed against the feather of Ma'at, the goddess of truth, and only those deemed worthy were allowed to pass into the afterlife. For those who failed the judgment, the consequences were grim. They were cast into the underworld, their souls forever lost. In the folklore of Europe, there are similar stories of spirits who linger. In Ireland, the tale of the Banshee is a well-known example. The Banshee is said to be the spirit of a woman who has died, her soul forever caught in the limbo between life and death. Her mournful wail is heard before a death occurs, a warning that someone is about to be taken. It is said that she will not rest until her mournful cry is answered, her sorrowful soul trapped in a cycle of grief and loss. The Banshee, like many other spirits in folklore, represents the souls of the forgotten, the ones who cannot move on, their suffering binding them to the world of the living. In Southeast Asia, the belief in wandering spirits is equally prevalent. In countries like Thailand and Cambodia, there are stories of souls that are unable to find peace after death. Phai Pop, a malevolent spirit in Thai folklore, is said to be the spirit of someone who died suddenly or violently, their soul unable to pass on. These spirits are said to haunt the living, seeking revenge for the wrongs done to them in life. They are cursed to roam, unable to find rest or peace, their rage fueling their endless wandering. The concept of the hungry ghost is also deeply rooted in the folklore of China. These are the souls of individuals who did not receive proper burial rites or who died with unfinished business. The Jiangshi, or hopping vampire, is a well-known figure in Chinese folklore, often depicted as the reanimated corpse of a person who died under tragic circumstances. These spirits are said to feed on the life force of the living, seeking to fulfill the desires that were left unsatisfied in their earthly existence. In many cultures, the belief in spirits trapped in limbo serves as both a warning and a means of coping with the uncertainty of death. The idea that a soul could become lost, wandering forever without peace, is a powerful image that speaks to a universal fear, the fear of being forgotten, of never finding resolution or closure. For the living, these tales serve as a reminder of the fragility of life and the importance of properly honouring the dead, ensuring that their journey to the afterlife is completed. But beyond the cultural beliefs, these stories also tap into something deeper: the human need to confront the unknown. What happens when someone dies but their spirit is left behind? Are they stuck in a state of suffering? And how does this suffering affect those who remain? These are questions that have haunted humanity for millennia, and the answers, or lack thereof, have given rise to some of the most enduring legends in folklore. In many ways, the restless dead embody the uncertainty that surrounds death itself. They are the ones who never make it to the other side, their journey forever interrupted by the living. These spirits are trapped in a cycle of despair, unable to break free from the world they once inhabited. They are reminders that death is not just an end, but a transition, and that not all souls make it through that transition unscathed. As we move forward, we will explore how these lost souls, trapped in limbo, interact with the living. What happens when the veil between the living and the dead becomes thin? How do these spirits, with their unresolved pain, influence the world of the living? And what can we learn from their stories? There are spirits whose journey is never complete, souls that linger in the realm of the living because of unfinished business. These are the restless dead, the entities who wander the earth, not out of vengeance or hatred, but because they are bound by unresolved emotions or obligations. Their purpose is often one of reconciliation, to settle the debts left behind in life or to seek closure. But this pursuit of peace is what keeps them tethered to the world they no longer belong to. These spirits are not malevolent by nature, but their presence is nonetheless unsettling, a reminder that some things in life and death remain unresolved. In many cultures, the idea of the restless dead is linked to the concept of guilt and atonement. The belief is that when someone dies with unfinished business, a promise unkept, a love unreturned, a wrong unrighted, their soul cannot find rest. Instead, they remain in limbo, trapped in a cycle of longing and regret. This belief is pervasive, appearing in one form or another across cultures around the world. It speaks to the universal fear of leaving something undone, of facing the consequences of our actions or inactions. One of the most famous examples of the restless dead is found in Shakespeare's Hamlet, where the ghost of King Hamlet appears to his son, Prince Hamlet, demanding that his murder be avenged. The king's spirit cannot rest until his death is avenged, and his soul is bound to the mortal realm until that obligation is fulfilled. This is a powerful symbol of how unresolved matters in life can keep us tethered to the world even after death. It is not the vengeance itself that keeps the spirit bound, but the need for justice, the need for the wrong to be righted. In Eastern traditions, particularly in China and Japan, the restless dead are often portrayed as spirits who must fulfill their earthly duties before they can move on to the afterlife. The hungry ghost in Chinese folklore is one such spirit, condemned to wander without rest due to the improper burial or lack of offerings from the living. These spirits are often depicted as starving, their mouths small and their bellies large, representing their insatiable hunger for something they were denied in life. The hungry ghost is driven by an intense longing, a craving for closure, for recognition, or for resolution. In this way, they are a manifestation of the human desire for justice, for things to be made right. Similarly, in Japan, the concept of the yurei represents souls who cannot pass on because they are consumed by emotions like anger, jealousy, or desire. The yurei is often depicted as a woman, clad in white funeral garments, her hair unkempt and her face obscured. She is the spirit of someone who died under tragic circumstances, a victim of betrayal, murder, or unfulfilled love. Her spirit is unable to find peace because of the emotional wounds she carries from her life. The yurei represents the unresolved pain that can keep a soul trapped between worlds, unable to transition into the afterlife until the wrongs done to her are avenged or addressed. The notion of the restless dead is also prevalent in Native American folklore. The Wendigo, a malevolent spirit from the Algonquian-speaking peoples, is often described as the manifestation of greed and insatiable hunger. While the Wendigo is most commonly associated with cannibalism and violence, it can also be interpreted as a symbol of the restless spirit driven by the desire for more wealth, more power, more life. The Wendigo's hunger is never satisfied, and in many stories, it represents the unresolved desires that cling to the soul, forcing it to wander the earth in search of something that can never be attained. In Mexico, the legend of La Llorona, the weeping woman, tells of a spirit who cannot rest due to the murder of her children. La Llorona's tragic story is one of deep sorrow and regret, and her spirit is cursed to roam the rivers, crying out for her lost children. The weeping woman represents the burden of guilt and the impossibility of moving on from a deeply tragic event. Her soul is bound to the world of the living, unable to pass on until she is forgiven for the horrors she has caused. The restless dead are often depicted as wandering between worlds, neither alive nor truly dead. Their presence is a reminder of the unresolved, the unfinished, the things left unsaid. They are spirits that yearn for closure, whether it be through justice, forgiveness, or the fulfillment of a promise. But in their search for resolution, they disturb the balance between the living and the dead, causing fear and unease. The dead are supposed to be at rest, but the restless dead, who cannot find peace, represent the instability that lies at the heart of human existence, the uncertainty of life, death, and what happens in the space between. The idea of the restless dead speaks to the human need for closure. It taps into our deepest fears of dying with regrets, of leaving things unresolved. These spirits are reminders that the living must deal with their own unfinished business before it is too late. For if we don't, we too may become part of the restless dead. In the next part, we will explore how these spirits, with their unresolved pain and unfinished business, interact with the living. What happens when the veil between life and death becomes thin, and the restless dead reach out to those who remain? There are places in the world that are shrouded in darkness, not just because of the absence of light, but because of the secrets they keep. These places are often depicted in folklore as realms where spirits and otherworldly entities dwell, waiting to cross over or seeking the living for reasons unknown. Among these places, none are more symbolic or enduring than the dark forests, vast, untamed wildernesses that evoke both fear and fascination. In the ancient world, forests were seen as gateways to the unknown, spaces where the boundaries between the living and the dead were thin, and where spirits could easily slip through. Forests have always held a deep cultural significance. They are often portrayed as places of mystery, danger, and transformation. In many traditions, the forest is not just a physical place, but a metaphor for the unknown, a place where the laws of nature are suspended, where time and space lose their meaning. In European folklore, the forest is frequently associated with witches, spirits, and fairies, creatures that inhabit the wild places untouched by human civilization. The forest is a liminal space, a threshold between the world of the living and the unseen realm. It is a place where the rules of the natural world no longer apply, and where the supernatural can take root. One of the most iconic images in folklore is the Black Forest of Germany, a place known for its mysterious and eerie atmosphere. The Black Forest has long been associated with dark legends and myths, from the tale of the Wendigo to the Hansel and Gretel story. The dense, shadowy trees of the Black Forest hide secrets, tales of travellers who disappear, of strange creatures who prey on the unwary, and of haunted woods where the dead never truly rest. It is a place where the boundary between the natural world and the supernatural is particularly thin, and where ancient spirits might linger, waiting to make their presence known. In Japan, forests are equally shrouded in mystery and superstition. The Aokigahara forest, also known as the suicide forest, is infamous for its dark associations with death. Located at the base of Mount Fuji, Aokigahara has long been believed to be a place where souls become lost, unable to move on to the afterlife. The dense trees and the silence that pervades the forest are thought to give it an eerie quality, as though the very land itself is steeped in sorrow and despair. Legends say that the souls of those who commit suicide in Aokigahara remain trapped within the forest, their spirits bound to the land in an endless cycle of suffering. This haunting belief has led many to avoid the forest, for fear of encountering the restless spirits who roam its paths. The Hoia forest in Romania is another example of a place where spirits are said to dwell. This forest is often referred to as the Bermuda Triangle of Romania, due to its mysterious and unexplained phenomena. Visitors to the Hoia forest report strange occurrences such as feeling watched, hearing voices, or even experiencing sudden feelings of dread. Some claim to have seen apparitions or strange lights, while others speak of the forest having an oppressive, almost malevolent energy. The Hoia forest has a dark reputation, and it is said to be a place where the veil between the living and the dead is especially thin. The forest's reputation for being haunted is so strong that it has become a popular location for paranormal investigations, with many hoping to uncover the truth behind the unsettling reports of unexplained phenomena. In North America, the legend of the Wendigo is often associated with the deep forests of the Canadian wilderness. The Wendigo is a malevolent spirit, said to be the manifestation of greed and cannibalism. According to Algonquian-speaking peoples, the Wendigo is a spirit that inhabits the remote forests, waiting for those who become lost or stranded to fall victim to its insatiable hunger. The Wendigo is said to possess individuals, driving them to madness and ultimately turning them into cannibals themselves. In this way, the Wendigo represents the dark side of human nature, and the forests where it dwells are seen as places where the supernatural and the human psyche intersect in terrifying ways. The Wendigo is a warning about the dangers of isolation, greed, and the consequences of losing touch with humanity. The dense forests of Southeast Asia are also filled with similar legends. In Thailand, the Phai Pop is a spirit that inhabits the wilderness, preying on the living. The Phai Pop is believed to be the spirit of someone who died a violent or unnatural death, and it is said to haunt the forest, waiting for travellers to become lost. Once a person is lost in the forest, the Phai Pop will possess them, driving them to madness or death. The Phai Pop, like many other spirits in Southeast Asia, is a manifestation of the fear of the unknown and of the belief that certain places, particularly the untamed, uncharted wilderness, are inhabited by forces beyond human comprehension. The concept of the forest as a place where spirits dwell is universal, whether it's the Black Forest in Germany, the Aokigahara in Japan, or the wilderness of North America. Forests are seen as places where the boundary between the living and the dead is particularly porous. These dark, wild places are where ancient spirits and restless souls linger, waiting for an opportunity to make their presence known. The forest is a place of transformation, where people can lose themselves, physically and spiritually. It is a place where the unknown is always present, and where the darkness can easily swallow those who venture too far. In these forests, spirits are not just passive observers. They are active forces, interacting with the living in ways that are both mysterious and terrifying. Whether through visions, whispers in the wind, or strange occurrences, these spirits make their presence known, often leading those who wander too far astray. For the living, these forests represent a place of danger, a place where the veil between the worlds is thin, and where the dead are never truly gone. In the next part, we will explore how these spirits interact with the living, and what happens when the balance between the worlds begins to shift. There are beings in folklore whose existence transcends the normal boundaries of life and death, spirits that are not merely lingering in the afterlife, but are forever bound to the mortal realm by a deep-seated desire for vengeance. These are the undying ones, the immortal spirits whose thirst for revenge is so powerful that it defies the laws of nature. Their hatred burns like a fire that never goes out, and their actions have consequences that ripple through generations. Unlike the restless dead, whose motives are driven by unfinished business or sorrow, the undying ones are driven by an unyielding need for retribution. Their vengeance is their very existence, and it is this relentless pursuit that keeps them tethered to the living world. In many cultures, these immortal spirits are feared for their ability to return time and time again, causing harm to those who wronged them in life or to their descendants. They do not seek peace or reconciliation. They seek retribution. One of the most famous examples of such a spirit is the revenant, a creature from European folklore, often depicted as a dead person who has come back to life to exact revenge. The revenant is typically a person who died violently, often due to betrayal or murder, and whose spirit could not rest until they had avenged their death. Their return is marked by terror, as they are believed to rise from their graves to hunt down those responsible for their untimely demise. In Ireland, one of the most iconic figures of vengeance is the Banshee, a female spirit who heralds the death of a loved one. While the Banshee is often portrayed as a harbinger of death, her wailing cry is said to be the result of a curse or wrong done to her in life. In some versions of the legend, the Banshee is not merely a passive mourner, but an active force of vengeance, seeking to punish those who have wronged her or her family. Her immortal nature means that she can return time and time again, her cries echoing across generations, a reminder that vengeance, once sought, can never truly be quenched. In Asia, particularly in the folklore of China, Japan, and Korea, the concept of the undying spirit of vengeance is similarly powerful. One of the most well-known figures is the Jiangshi, or hopping vampire, from Chinese folklore. The Jiangshi is the reanimated corpse of a person who died under tragic or violent circumstances, and it is said to rise from the grave with a singular purpose: to seek revenge. The Jiangshi's thirst for blood and its unrelenting pursuit of vengeance make it a terrifying figure in Chinese mythology. Unlike other spirits, the Jiangshi is not content to simply linger in the afterlife. It is driven by an insatiable need to right the wrongs of its death, often at the expense of the living. Similarly, in Japan, the tale of Oiwa, the vengeful spirit from the kabuki play Yotsuya Kaidan, tells the story of a woman whose husband betrays her. Oiwa is poisoned by her husband, and in her agony and rage, her spirit returns from the dead to seek revenge. Her ghost is said to haunt her husband, torturing him with her grotesque appearance and causing his eventual downfall. Oiwa's story is one of pure vengeance, a spirit that cannot rest until her tormentor is punished for his betrayal. Her transformation from a wronged woman to a terrifying spectre of vengeance serves as a warning about the consequences of infidelity and cruelty. In Korea, the Cheonyo Gwisin is a ghostly figure that also represents the undying pursuit of vengeance. She is the spirit of a young woman who died before she could marry, often due to betrayal or injustice. The Cheonyo Gwisin spirit is said to haunt those who have wronged her, particularly men, and her appearance is often associated with tragic or untimely deaths. Like Oiwa and the Banshee, the Cheonyo Gwisin spirit is not content to remain at peace. Her desire for vengeance drives her to return again and again, haunting those who are responsible for her untimely death. These immortal spirits of vengeance are not confined to any one culture or region. Their stories are told and retold across time, reflecting humanity's deep-seated fears about the consequences of wrongdoing, betrayal, and injustice. The idea of a spirit who cannot rest until their vengeance is fulfilled speaks to a primal need for justice, the belief that wrongs must be righted, and that those who commit evil must be held accountable, even beyond the grave. What makes these spirits particularly terrifying is their immortality. Unlike other spirits who are bound by time or circumstance, the undying ones are eternal. Their vengeance has no end, and their desire for retribution can never be quenched. This eternal pursuit makes them a constant threat, a reminder that no wrongdoing is ever truly forgotten, and that justice, in its purest form, is relentless. These spirits of vengeance represent something deep and unsettling about human nature. They tap into the desire for justice, but they also reflect the darker side of that desire, the need for punishment, for retribution, even at the cost of eternal suffering. They are a reminder that in the world of folklore, there is no escape from the consequences of one's actions, and that vengeance, once awakened, is an unstoppable force. As we move forward, we will explore how these undying spirits interact with the living, how they continue to shape the world long after their death, and what lessons can be learned from their eternal pursuit of vengeance. What happens when the undying ones are unleashed upon the world of the living? And how do those who cross their path seek to survive when faced with an enemy that cannot be vanquished? There are some spirits whose return is not just a matter of vengeance or unfinished business, but a violent, terrifying reawakening. These are the revenants, the dead who come back to life, not as wandering souls or ethereal entities, but as corporeal beings, terrifying and often bloodthirsty. The revenant is a figure that represents the darkest side of death and resurrection, a soul that has been disturbed by the forces of nature or malevolent acts, refusing to stay at peace. Unlike other spirits who linger in a state of limbo, these beings return with a tangible physical presence that cannot be ignored. The revenant is a figure deeply rooted in European folklore. In the Middle Ages, tales of revenants spread across the continent, particularly in regions like France, Ireland, and Eastern Europe. The revenant is typically a person who has died violently or unjustly, perhaps from murder, betrayal, or under tragic circumstances. Unlike ghosts or spirits that hover in the periphery of life, revenants are said to return in a physical form, walking among the living. They come back to seek vengeance, to punish those who wronged them, or to simply right the wrongs left unresolved. In French folklore, the revenant is often depicted as a corpse that has risen from the grave. The return of the revenant is usually a sign of trouble. They are believed to bring pestilence, bad luck, or death. In some cases, the revenant is said to come back to kill the person responsible for their death. This violent return is often connected to the fear of the dead not staying dead, an unsettling reminder that death may not be the final end. The revenant's physicality makes them all the more frightening, as they are real flesh and bone beings, not just ghostly apparitions. They have weight, strength, and the power to exact their revenge. In Ireland, tales of the undead returning to their homes are common. These revenants, like the Irish Banshee, are often associated with death and the vengeance that follows it. A revenant in Irish folklore is often seen as a person who had died in a violent or untimely manner, a murder victim or someone whose life had been taken in an unjust way. Their return to the mortal world is always marked by violence or tragedy. In many Irish tales, the revenant does not simply appear to the family members of the deceased, but instead brings disaster to the community. They are symbols of a deeper, more universal truth, that some debts, some wrongs, are too great to ever be undone, and that death, no matter how permanent it seems, can sometimes be defied. In Eastern Europe, the figure of the revenant is intertwined with the rise of vampire legends, such as the notorious Dracula in Romania. The strigoi, a type of revenant in Romanian folklore, is the spirit of a person who returns from the grave as a blood-draining creature. Unlike other vampires, the strigoi is believed to be more closely tied to the idea of a restless soul, a person whose death was not natural or whose spirit was not properly laid to rest. The strigoi is said to rise from the grave to haunt the living, attacking family members, draining their life force, and causing sickness or even death. The strigoi represents the fear that the dead will not stay dead, that the boundaries between life and death are fragile, and that certain souls may never find rest. The Wendigo, a similarly terrifying figure in Native American folklore, also embodies the concept of a revenant. While the Wendigo is often associated with cannibalism and greed, it also shares key characteristics with the revenant. It is the reanimated spirit of a human who has been transformed due to unnatural actions, such as consuming human flesh. The Wendigo is said to return with an insatiable hunger for human flesh, a desire that never ceases. It is not just a mindless monster. It is a human soul that has been twisted and corrupted, forever haunted by its actions. The Wendigo's return to the physical realm represents the idea of the undead reclaiming their place among the living, only to bring destruction in their wake. In Latin America, the figure of the revenant is also prevalent, often taking the form of a zombie or a dead spirit that returns to fulfill some form of vengeance or to complete a task left unfinished in life. La Llorona, the weeping woman of Mexican folklore, is a kind of revenant, a tragic figure who returns from death to haunt the living, seeking her lost children or punishing those who wronged her. Like other revenants, her return is marked by sorrow and vengeance, and her presence is felt in the living world through her haunting cry. La Llorona, like many revenants, represents the inability of certain spirits to rest, their unresolved emotions dragging them back into the world of the living. Revenants, regardless of the specific cultural context, share a common theme: the defiance of death. They are the physical manifestations of death's failure to take its full hold on the living world. While most folklore depicts death as the final separation between the living and the dead, revenants remind us that this separation is not always permanent. The dead, once disturbed, can return with terrifying power, often to wreak havoc on the living. These tales speak to a fear that is universal, the fear that death is not the end, that there are forces beyond our control, and that some wrongs cannot be put to rest. The revenant is a symbol of unfinished business, of the ghosts and spirits that cannot be kept in their graves. They return with a purpose: to right a wrong, to exact vengeance, or simply to remind the living that death is not always as final as we hope. Their presence is a warning that death may be only one step in the journey of the soul, and that some souls, once disturbed, are unwilling to remain at peace. In the next part, we will delve deeper into the consequences of these revenants' return. What happens when the dead rise again, when the natural order is disturbed, and the balance between life and death is thrown into chaos? How do the living cope with the terror of knowing that death is not always final, and that the dead may return to seek retribution? The answer lies in the stories of those who survive these terrifying encounters with the revenants, and the lessons they learned from confronting the undying dead. Throughout history, there have been countless stories of objects imbued with dark, malevolent energy. These are the cursed objects, artifacts, relics, or even simple items that carry with them the essence of death, misfortune, and tragedy. Unlike spirits that haunt people or places, these objects carry their own sinister power, an energy so dark that it can transform the lives of those who come into contact with them. They are the physical manifestations of the supernatural, vessels of ancient curses, and objects bound by the sorrow, anger, or suffering of the dead. Their very presence brings unease, and for those who possess them, a life of misfortune is often sure to follow. The concept of cursed objects is deeply rooted in folklore and mythology, spanning across cultures and centuries. From ancient civilizations to modern tales, these objects serve as reminders that there are forces beyond human understanding, forces that can linger in the most mundane of things, transforming them into instruments of doom. Cursed objects are often tied to tragedy or wrongdoing, whether it be the bloodshed of a battle, the betrayal of a loved one, or the violation of sacred rites. In the realm of dark folklore, they are the lingering consequences of actions that cannot be undone, trapped in the form of the objects that carried the curses. One of the most famous examples of a cursed object is the Hope Diamond, a gemstone with a history shrouded in death and misfortune. Legend has it that the diamond was stolen from an idol in India, and the curse that followed has led to the deaths of several owners over the centuries. The tale of the Hope Diamond is one of greed, betrayal, and murder, where the object is not just a possession, but a symbol of the dark forces that control fate. Those who have owned it are said to have been plagued by ill luck, financial ruin, and untimely deaths. The diamond itself became an object of superstition, a physical manifestation of the curse it carried with it. Similarly, in Japan, the story of the Okiku doll represents one of the most chilling examples of a cursed object. The doll, which is said to have been a gift to a young girl named Okiku, became the source of terror after the girl's death. The doll's hair is said to grow over time, despite being kept in a glass case, and many believe this growth is connected to the spirit of the young girl, who died under mysterious circumstances. It is said that the doll is cursed, haunted by Okiku's restless spirit, and that its hair will continue to grow as long as her soul is not at peace. This eerie phenomenon has attracted countless visitors to the doll, who come to witness its sinister power and the dark energy it seems to radiate. In Mexico, the story of La Pascualita, a mannequin in a bridal shop, has become a local legend of a cursed object. La Pascualita is said to be the embalmed body of a young woman, a former employee of the shop, who died tragically on her wedding day. According to some, her body was preserved and placed in the window as a mannequin, but many people claim that La Pascualita's eyes follow them as they pass by, and that she moves slightly when no one is watching. The mannequin is believed to be cursed, and some even say that it is haunted by the spirit of the bride who died, her restless soul trapped in the lifeless body. For those who dare to look too long, the mannequin is a chilling reminder that the dead can never truly be left behind. In India, the cursed idol of the Kandari Devi temple is said to bring misfortune to anyone who dares to touch it. The temple is located in the remote hills of Rajasthan, and the idol is believed to be a physical representation of the goddess Kandari Devi. According to the legend, the idol was cursed by the goddess herself after a betrayal by her followers. Anyone who attempts to remove the idol or disrespect it is said to be cursed with a series of misfortunes, often culminating in death. Stories of people who have dared to touch the idol and paid the price with their lives are passed down through generations, making the idol both feared and revered. Perhaps one of the most well-known cursed objects in modern folklore is the Annabelle doll. This infamous haunted doll, which is housed in a museum in Connecticut, became widely known after being featured in the Conjuring movie franchise. According to legend, the doll was given to a young girl by her mother, but it soon became clear that the doll was inhabited by a malevolent spirit. The doll's presence was said to cause physical harm, unexplained movements, and even the deaths of those who came into contact with it. The doll is now kept in a glass case, locked away in a museum as a warning to those who may come across it. The story of Annabelle is a modern-day example of how cursed objects continue to fascinate and terrify, carrying the weight of the supernatural into the present day. These cursed objects are not simply items of folklore or superstition. They are symbols of the dark forces that lie beneath the surface of the everyday world. They represent the idea that the supernatural can manifest in tangible, physical forms, affecting the lives of ordinary people in ways that are both terrifying and mysterious. The objects themselves become vessels of the past, carrying with them the lingering emotions, tragedies, and injustices that cannot be forgotten. What makes these cursed objects so unsettling is the fact that they are often items that we encounter in our daily lives. A doll, a gem, a mannequin. These are not the things we associate with danger or the supernatural, and yet these objects carry within them the power to transform, to curse, and to bring ruin to those who possess them. They remind us that even the most mundane of things can hold dark secrets, and that the forces of the supernatural can never be fully contained. In the next part, we will explore how these cursed objects interact with the living. What happens when a person comes into contact with an item that carries with it the weight of a curse? How does one break free from the grip of a cursed object? And what is the cost of ignoring the warning signs? The stories of those who have survived encounters with cursed objects provide the answers, as well as the chilling realization that sometimes some things are better left untouched. Throughout history, there have been those who claim to see beyond the veil of the present, gifted with the ability to glimpse the future, but not always in a hopeful light. The prophecies of doom and destruction of the end of times have pervaded cultures around the world, echoing the fear of an uncertain and uncontrollable fate. These prophecies, whether cryptic or direct, serve as warnings of dark events to come, marking the downfall of civilizations, the collapse of societies, or the inevitable end of the world. They are the shadows that loom over the future, cast by the seers and oracles who claim to know the secrets of what lies ahead. One of the most famous examples of prophecy is the Mayan calendar and its supposed prediction of the world's end on December 21st, 2012. While modern scholars debunked the apocalyptic claims, the idea of the Mayan calendar signaling the end of the world sparked a global panic. The Mayans themselves, however, did not predict the end of the world, but rather the end of an era, a cyclical shift in time. Yet the prophecy became intertwined with a vision of darkness and destruction, reflecting humanity's deep-seated fear of the unknown and the inevitability of death, both personal and collective. Similarly, in Christianity, the Book of Revelation has long been a source of apocalyptic prophecy, outlining a future where the forces of good and evil will clash in a final battle. The vivid imagery of the four horsemen of the apocalypse, the beast, and the destruction of the earth have fueled centuries of interpretation, fear, and speculation. From medieval times to modern-day conspiracy theorists, the idea that the world will one day come to a violent, cataclysmic end is a powerful narrative that has shaped much of Western thought about death, destruction, and the fate of humanity. In ancient Greece, the prophecies of Cassandra, the Trojan princess, cursed to utter true prophecies that no one would believe, offer a haunting glimpse into the tragedy of foretelling disaster without the ability to change it. Cassandra's visions foretold the fall of Troy, but her warnings were ignored, leading to the ruin of her city. Her story is one of tragic inevitability, a reminder that knowing the future does not always empower those who hear the prophecy to alter it. The theme of doomed knowledge is a common one in folklore and prophecy, the idea that foretelling the end does not always prevent it, and sometimes it only hastens the inevitable. In Norse mythology, the Völuspá, the prophecy told by the seeress, describes the coming of Ragnarök, the end of the world. According to the prophecy, the gods will fall in battle against the giants, the earth will be consumed by fire, and the world as we know it will be destroyed. Yet, after the destruction, the world will be reborn, and life will begin anew. This cyclical concept of destruction and rebirth reflects the Norse belief in fate and destiny, where the end of one cycle marks the beginning of another. Ragnarök is not simply an end, but a necessary transition, one that is predestined and unavoidable. Nostradamus, a French astrologer from the 16th century, is another figure whose prophecies have been interpreted as foretelling apocalyptic events. His quatrains, written in a cryptic and often obscure style, have been widely studied and analysed, with many believing that Nostradamus predicted major historical events such as the rise of Hitler, the French Revolution, and the September 11th attacks. While some of his predictions are more fantasy than fact, the sense of foreboding in his work, the idea that the future is fraught with turmoil and catastrophe, has made him a significant figure in the realm of prophecy and dark predictions. In Hinduism, the concept of Kali Yuga speaks to an age of darkness and corruption. According to Hindu scriptures, time is divided into 4 ages, and Kali Yuga represents the final, degenerate age before the world is destroyed and recreated. It is an age marked by the decline of virtue, the rise of vice, and the eventual destruction of all things. The belief in Kali Yuga is part of a cyclical worldview where the end of one age is followed by a new beginning, but the darkness of Kali Yuga reflects the idea of a world falling into chaos before renewal can take place. Prophecies are not always associated with the end of the world, but often with personal or societal destruction. The Oracle of Delphi, for example, offered prophecies that were cryptic, but shaped the actions of kings, heroes, and warriors in ancient Greece. The concept of the oracle, a wise figure who could foretell the future, also appears in many cultures. The prophecy itself often brought misfortune, the knowledge of an impending doom that could not be avoided or stopped. The prophecy would either lead to the hero's downfall or ensure that they fulfilled their tragic fate, as seen in the tale of Oedipus, whose fate was sealed by the prophecy that he would kill his father and marry his mother. The common thread running through these various prophecies is the theme of inevitability. Whether it is the Mayan end of an era, the Christian apocalypse, Ragnarok, or Nostradamus's predictions, the prophecies all suggest that the end, whether personal or societal, is predestined and unavoidable. They serve as reminders of the fragility of human existence, the inevitability of death, and the unknowable future that lies ahead. The fear of the end of the world, or the end of an age, taps into a primal anxiety, one that reflects humanity's deep need to understand its place in the grand, unknowable tapestry of existence. As we move forward, we will explore how these prophecies have shaped human culture, influencing everything from religion and politics to art and literature. How have these dark foretellings shaped the course of history? What happens when individuals or societies become obsessed with the idea of an impending end? And more importantly, how do these prophecies continue to affect us today as we live under the shadow of an uncertain future? Throughout history, humanity has created countless stories of the supernatural, tales of spirits, monsters, haunted places, and apocalyptic visions. These stories, woven into the fabric of cultures around the world, are not just mere entertainment or superstition. They are reflections of the deepest fears and anxieties that lie within every human being. Fears of death, of the unknown, of what might come after life, and of what happens when the natural order is disrupted. These dark folklore tales speak to a fundamental aspect of the human condition: the need to understand and control the things that scare us and the ways we process and cope with the mysteries of life and death. At the core of many of these tales is the fear of the unknown. It is an innate, primal fear. The fear of what lies beyond our perception, of what exists beyond the limits of our understanding. The unknown is something we cannot control. something we cannot predict, and something we cannot always prepare for. Whether it's the fear of death, the fear of spirits that refuse to rest, or the fear of dark prophecies about the future, the unknown is a constant theme in dark folklore. The stories we tell about ghosts, curses, and the end of the world are our way of trying to understand, explain, and make sense of these terrifying unknowns. In many ways, these stories offer a form of psychological coping. The fear of death, for example, is something that every human being must face. It is inevitable, and yet it remains one of our greatest fears. By creating stories about spirits that return from the grave, we are trying to confront this fear head-on. We want to understand what happens after death, and we create narratives in which the dead don't simply disappear, but remain in some form, whether it's as ghosts, revenants, or restless souls. These stories give us the illusion of control, the idea that death is not an absolute end, but a transition that can be understood, navigated, or even reversed. The fear of the unknown is also reflected in the countless myths and legends about creatures that inhabit the dark corners of the world. Whether it's the Wendigo, the cannibalistic spirit from Native American folklore, or the Pontianak, a vengeful ghost in Southeast Asia, these creatures are embodiments of the fears that humanity has about the darker aspects of our own nature. The Wendigo, for example, is said to be a spirit that takes over humans, driving them to madness and cannibalism. This myth reflects humanity's fear of losing control over our own impulses, of being consumed by hunger or greed, and of being taken over by something monstrous within us. Similarly, the Pontianak, a woman who dies during childbirth and returns as a vengeful spirit, speaks to the fear of death's unpredictability and the ways in which life's natural cycles can be disrupted by tragedy. These creatures are not merely threats from the outside world. They are projections of the darker impulses within human nature, the capacity for violence, for revenge, and for the primal urge to survive at any cost. They represent the fears we have of becoming something monstrous, of losing our humanity to forces beyond our control. But it's not just the fear of death or monstrous transformation that drives these stories. The fear of what happens after death, the fear of the unknown that awaits us on the other side, is another recurring theme in dark folklore. This is why so many cultures have stories of restless spirits, of souls that cannot find peace. In Japanese folklore, the tale of the yurei, the ghost of someone who died with unfulfilled desires or in tragic circumstances, taps into this fear. The yurei is not merely a ghost that haunts a place. It is a reflection of the soul's inability to move on, unable to reach peace because of the unresolved issues that linger. In many cultures, the act of honoring the dead, of performing rituals and ceremonies to ensure that the spirit is laid to rest, is a way of coping with the fear of the unknown after death. The stories of restless spirits remind the living of the importance of these rites. The belief that failing to honor the dead might cause the spirits to return and disturb the living. This belief reflects humanity's deep-seated anxiety about what happens when we ignore or disrespect the mysteries of death and the afterlife. It is as though, in our need to understand what happens after we die, we create stories of spirits that linger, of dark forces that arise when the proper rituals are not observed. Another powerful aspect of dark folklore is the theme of vengeance. Many of the spirits in folklore, whether they are the revenants, the Banshee, or the Jiangshi, return from death to exact revenge for wrongs done to them in life. This theme taps into the human desire for justice, the need to ensure that wrongs are righted, and the fear of facing consequences for one's actions. The idea that the dead can return to seek revenge is unsettling, because it implies that no matter how much time passes, no injustice is ever truly forgotten. It's a reminder that our actions have consequences that can transcend life itself, and that we may not always be able to escape the repercussions of our wrongdoings. The pervasive nature of these dark stories suggests that they are more than just cautionary tales. They are a means of confronting the very things that scare us: death, loss, the unknown, and the darkness within ourselves. They are a way of coping with the fragility of life, of confronting our deepest fears and anxieties in a controlled, fictionalized way. By creating these stories, we can explore the darkness without having to face it directly. We can understand our fears from a safe distance, and in doing so, we may even come to terms with them. At the heart of dark folklore is the tension between life and death, order and chaos, and the known and the unknown. These stories reflect humanity's struggle to understand and control the things that lie beyond our comprehension. They speak to our desire for justice, for resolution, and for understanding. But they also remind us of the limits of our control and the uncertainty of the future. In many ways, dark folklore offers us a glimpse into the collective psyche of humanity, revealing our deepest fears and desires, and showing us that even in the darkest corners of the unknown, there is always something worth confronting, something worth understanding. In the final part, we will reflect on the lessons learned from these tales, considering what they tell us about human nature and our eternal quest to understand the mysteries of life, death, and the spaces in between. What do these dark tales reveal about our need for closure, for justice, and for understanding in a world that often seems beyond our control? As we reach the end of this journey through the darker corners of folklore, we are left with a deeper understanding of the role these stories play in our lives and in the cultures that have passed them down through generations. From restless spirits to cursed objects, from prophetic warnings to vengeful revenants, the tales we've explored are not merely entertainment or superstition. They are reflections of the human condition, of our deepest fears, our unresolved emotions, and our desperate need to understand the mysteries of life and death. At the heart of all these dark tales is the human desire for control over the unknown. Throughout history, humans have looked to folklore to make sense of the things that scare us most: death, the supernatural, the things that lie beyond the veil of our understanding. These stories are our way of confronting what we cannot fully grasp, giving shape to our anxieties, and, in a sense, controlling the uncontrollable. The fear of death, the fear of the restless dead, and the fear of what comes after life are some of the most fundamental concerns of humanity, and these tales offer a way to deal with them, even if only symbolically. One of the recurring themes in these stories is the search for closure. Whether it's a spirit seeking vengeance for a wrong, a cursed object bringing tragedy to those who possess it, or a prophecy foretelling the end of the world, these stories all share a common thread: the need to find resolution. In many cases, the figures in these tales, the spirits, the creatures, and the cursed beings, are trapped in cycles of suffering, unable to move on until their business is finished. It is only when they fulfill their purpose, whether through vengeance, reconciliation, or justice, that they can finally rest. This mirrors the human desire for closure in our own lives, the need to resolve the things that haunt us, the things left undone. However, these tales also serve as warnings. They remind us of the consequences of ignoring our fears, our responsibilities, or our understanding of life's inevitable truths. The restless dead are not just a metaphor for spirits unable to move on, but for the unresolved aspects of our own lives, the guilt, the grief, and the regrets that we carry with us. The revenants and the vengeful spirits are a stark reminder that actions have consequences that can echo far beyond our own lifetimes. The cursed objects show us that even the smallest thing can hold dark power, reminding us that there are forces in the world that are beyond our control. In many ways, these dark stories are cautionary tales. They urge us to face our fears, to make amends, and to seek resolution before it's too late. Another powerful lesson that emerges from these stories is the idea that death is not an end, but a transition. The cycles of death and rebirth, the destruction and renewal found in many cultures' apocalyptic prophecies, reflect a belief that death is not a finality, but a part of a larger cosmic process. Whether it's the Mayan calendar or the Voluspa, the idea of the end of one world and the beginning of another serves as a reminder that life is cyclical, that endings are often followed by new beginnings. This cyclical nature is a comforting notion, suggesting that even in the darkest times, there is hope for renewal, for a world that is born anew after destruction. It is a concept that ties together the dark with the light, the end with the beginning. At the same time, the dark folklore we have explored also serves as a powerful reflection of human nature. The spirits, creatures, and curses we've encountered in these tales are not simply external forces. They are manifestations of our own emotions, our own fears, and our own struggles with mortality. The Jiangshi, the Wendigo, the Banshee, and the Pontianak are all reflections of our darker impulses: greed, vengeance, jealousy, and sorrow. These beings are not just creatures of myth. They are projections of the darkness within us, the parts of ourselves that we fear to acknowledge. By confronting these creatures and spirits in folklore, we confront these parts of ourselves, exploring the boundaries of good and evil, of justice and vengeance, of life and death. In the end, the power of dark folklore lies in its ability to speak to us on a deeply personal level. These stories remind us that death is a mystery we cannot escape, and that our actions, our emotions, and our beliefs have the power to transcend life itself. They challenge us to face the unknown, to confront our deepest fears, and to find meaning in the things we cannot understand. And though these tales often present the darker side of existence, they also provide a way for us to process and come to terms with our own mortality, our own struggles, and our own place in the larger, unknowable tapestry of life and death. In a world that can often feel unpredictable and uncertain, these stories offer us something more, a way to navigate the darkness. They give us a map to chart our way through the unknown, a framework to understand the forces that shape our lives. Whether we view them as simple folklore, cautionary tales, or reflections of the human psyche, one thing is certain: they remind us that we are never truly alone in facing the unknown, for we have our ancestors' stories to guide us. As we close the chapter on these dark tales, we are left with one final question. What do we take from these stories into our own lives? Do we ignore the darkness, pretend it does not exist, or do we embrace it, confront it, and learn from it? The choice, as always, is ours.